The situation is heating up on the front lines. Dozens of Russian troops are launching an attempt to seize Ukrainian-held territory, but the results are far from what they hoped.
Що ти заникався?
No one expected this offensive, which began with such confidence, would end in a surprise on the ground. With a neat and controlled approach, they managed to secure several Russian personnel in the area, proving that an operation that initially seemed strong can change direction in a short time. Under increasing pressure and limited mobility, some Russian forces found themselves in a difficult position. The Ukrainian forces took full advantage of the momentum.
Работай, блядь!
Кто выгнал?
Командир, блядь. Что, домой хочешь?
Да какого у меня нет дома?
Ну хочешь жить, да?
Я бы лучше иметь хороший для кого-нибудь.
A Ukrainian Special Forces squad arrived at the front line with a crucial mission. They weren't just there to defend, but to ensure there were no openings the enemy could exploit. The information they received was clear Russian forces were attempting a breakthrough in this sector, using the momentum to pressure the defense line and create a weak point.
Кину. Есть. Сейчас бабах.
Как работает настоящий тигр. Сначала.
Without wasting any time, the Ukrainian Special Forces moved swiftly. The situation on the ground was still dynamic, and every second was crucial. They understood that success or failure could be determined even before direct contact was made. Upon arriving in the operational area, they immediately took up positions and began formulating a tactical response based on the intelligence received.
Давай, пане! Хто кинув гранату?
In one of the active sectors of the battle, Russian forces launched a significant forward push. With well-organized formations and planned movements, they attempted to pressure the Ukrainian defense line and create opportunities to seize strategic territory. This offensive initially appeared convincing. However, the situation changed much more rapidly than expected.
Да все, я думаю, все, надо займать укрытие. Налево.
After several hours of intense, close-quarters combat, the situation on the front line finally began to show significant changes. The previously intense contact slowly began to subside. The thunderous gunfire that had dominated the area was now replaced by more measured tactical movements. Amidst the still vulnerable conditions, Ukrainian forces maintained their operational rhythm, not rushing, but also not allowing any remaining threat to resurface.
Інформацію, що я буду тут крити. Плюс прийняли.
Ukrainian forces quickly secured the situation. The area was systematically cleared, ensuring there was no further threat. Surrendering personnel were secured according to procedure, marking the end of the intense contact that had occurred in a short but decisive period.
15-20 за жмуром, зліва в кусті, там де...
After securing control of the area, they continued their search to ensure there were no hidden threats. Drones were again used to monitor the perimeter, while ground units secured positions and reinforced new defense lines.
Так, диви, може там яка-то пітушня, це може бути засада.
However, controlling an area doesn't mean complete security. Ukrainian troops understand all too well that even after the fighting subsides, hidden threats often remain. In many cases, remnants of enemy forces choose to hide, taking advantage of trenches, damaged buildings, or cover lines that are difficult to detect with the naked eye. Therefore, their focus remains
Та
unchanged.
мені по, хто ти, давай викидай все на. А якого хуя ти робиш, ти кацап?
Да не беспокойся, никого нет.
Цинкуй туди, вампір, 12 твої. Лежи.
The newly secured area remains guarded with a high level of vigilance. Every movement, no matter how small, is monitored. Units on the ground move slowly, ensuring no spot is overlooked. Drones are again deployed, scanning the area from the air for possible movement or hidden positions.
Вали, вали, вали. А ну стой, Росія. Росія. Давай.
There is no room for laxity. Ukrainian troops know that one small mistake could open the door to a surprise attack. Therefore, the clearing process is carried out in layers from the front lines to the deepest parts of the previously enemy-held area. Meanwhile, other situations are also being exploited. Several Russian troops secured in previous battles are now under close surveillance. Under these circumstances, they become a crucial source of information. From them, the picture of the terrain becomes clearer.
Да. Не упади только, аккуратно.
Ukrainian troops are working to gather information on hiding positions, trench lines, and possible defense points that have yet to be discovered. This information is crucial, especially to prevent further threats or counterattacks from other undetected units.
Оттуда йшов сюди? Да. А куди йшов?
От туди, він, в ту сторону, пацанам води.
Я
Ти
потерялся.
просто гуляєш?
Я потерялся.
Because in terrain like this, what appears on the surface doesn't necessarily reflect the true situation. It's possible that, beneath the rubble or along hidden trenches, there are still movements waiting for the right moment.
Что хоть вы нормальные попались?
Що, домой хочеш?
Я какого у меня нет дома?
Ну хочеш жити?
Тікати собрався?
Я иду вообще,
Не
я
ори.
не знаю.
That's why the operation doesn't stop with a fleeting victory. Ukrainian troops remain in the area, strengthening their positions, while ensuring that every corner is completely secure. Using a combination of technological surveillance and information from the field, they strive to close all possible gaps. Because, for them, controlling the territory is only one part of the mission. Ensuring the territory is truly secure, that is the ultimate goal.
19. Благодаря таким як ти. Я йду воювати.
Лінія змістилась метрів 50 вперед. Максимально в темпі, в нас є 10 хвилин, щоб політати.
But one question is beginning to arise. Is this battle truly over, or has it just entered a more dangerous phase? In the midst of the secured area, Ukrainian troops did not immediately lower their guard. On the contrary, they began to sense that something was not yet completely over. Although some Russian forces had been secured, indications on the ground suggested that enemy elements might still be hiding.
Все, плюс! Базар чисто!
And in terrain like this, threats often come from unexpected directions. Small signs began to be detected, vague movements, newly used paths, and even unexplored covert points. All of this pointed to one conclusion. There was still the potential for Russian troops to remain covertly.
Можливо, я бачу його. Давай, єсте впізні.
Ukrainian troops were taking no chances. Maintaining a safe distance and maintaining coordination, they began to direct their attention to points deemed suspicious. Drones were again used to confirm positions, while ground units prepared to respond quickly if needed. And without further delay, several retaliatory shots were fired at these points.
Север, FPV летять. Станьтеся по дерев'ях.
This was not just an attack, but a tactical move to suppress a potential threat that had not yet been clearly visible. Each shot had a purpose to force the concealed enemy to move, or at least reveal their position. The situation returned tense. Although the area has been controlled, uncertainty remains. Ukrainian forces remain on high alert, ready for further contact at any time. Because on the front lines, victory is never truly final. And in the shadows of the silent battlefield, the threat could reappear at any moment. Now attention has shifted to another sector not far from the previous area, and the situation here is no less tense. In this adjacent sector, Ukrainian forces were no longer relying solely on defense and rapid response. They began to seize the initiative with a much more aggressive yet measured approach. Using close-quarters battle (CQB) tactics, Ukrainian units moved slowly, silently, and calculatedly toward enemy positions. This tactic is known as one of the most effective methods of close-quarters combat, especially in confined spaces like trenches, damaged buildings, and covert lines. Every move counted. The teams moved in small units, covering each other. Communication was minimal but clear. Their primary focus was one, approaching undetected, then quickly capturing positions before the enemy could react. And the results began to show. A few days earlier, a similar approach had yielded significant results. Ukrainian forces, including units from Azov, reportedly captured approximately 480 square kilometers of territory in a series of phased operations in this sector. Not with a large frontal assault, but with constant pressure and precision tactics. They moved in slowly, securing one point after another, cutting off enemy movement, eventually capturing a much larger area. This demonstrated that under certain conditions, a CQB approach is actually more effective than an open attack. And now, the tactic is being used again. In this sector, Ukrainian forces are closing in again. They are moving through narrow lanes, utilizing natural and artificial cover to remain hidden. Every corner is a concern, every shadow a threat. The enemy may not realize that they are being approached. With the pressure coming quietly but surely, Ukrainian forces are trying to repeat their previous success, taking territory not through speed alone, but through complete control of every step. If this tactic succeeds again, it's not impossible that this sector will be the next turning point on the front line.
Айда! Вот, прикрываем! Проходим, рассредоточить!
Without much noise, they move closer, and the enemy sometimes doesn't even notice. In this sector, a stealthy approach is key. Ukrainian forces, relying on CQB, close-quarters battle tactics, don't arrive in large, visible forces, but rather in small, fast, and coordinated movements. They infiltrate, utilizing trenches, ruins, and narrow paths. Small units slowly approach suspected Russian defensive positions. There's no wasted movement. Every step is calculated, every angle is watched with vigilance. And here's the difference. Whereas previously the battle was dominated by open engagements, now everything is happening at very close range, where quick reactions and coordination are key. Ukrainian forces are starting to press on. Once the enemy position is identified, they don't immediately launch a full-scale attack. Instead, they lock down the area first, ensuring limited escape routes and narrowing the enemy's space for maneuver. Slowly but surely. Some points are captured without significant resistance, while at others, brief engagements occur quick, intense, and decisive. In scenarios like this, whoever is better prepared usually emerges victorious. And so far, the momentum remains with Ukraine. Previous successes in securing large areas were no fluke. They were the result of consistent, gradual pressure, and now the same pattern is being applied again in this sector. The enemy is forced to defend, without really knowing where the next pressure will come from. With this approach, Ukrainian forces are not just trying to seize territory, they are also trying to break the enemy's concentration, disrupt coordination, and create uncertainty at every line of defense. Because in close combat like this, one small step can make a big difference. And if this pressure continues, it is not impossible that this sector will become the next point of failure for the enemy's defense. The focus shifted to the most vulnerable areas, the buildings suspected of harboring the enemy. In a situation like this, Ukrainian troops could no longer rely on open assault. They had to enter and engage the threat at very close range. This is where CQB, close quarters battle tactics, were truly put to the test. The Ukrainian troops began their slow approach to the building. Every corner was scrutinized, every window and door a potential threat. They didn't move haphazardly. The formation was tightly maintained, with clear roles assigned to each team member. One team secured the perimeter, while the other team prepared to enter. And when the moment arrived, they entered. The entry was swift, purposeful, and coordinated. Every room was systematically searched. Dark corners, narrow corridors, and hidden areas were top priority. In a battle like this, distances could be mere meters or even less. Reactions had to be quicker than a shadow. The Ukrainian troops relied on concise communication, hand signals, and time-tested training to ensure no mistakes. They moved from room to room, securing each point before moving on to the next. The pressure continued. For the Russian troops inside the building, the situation became increasingly tense. It was difficult. Space was limited, exits were monitored, and every move was immediately detected. Some tried to hold their ground, but in these conditions, the advantage lay with the more organized side. With a disciplined CQB approach, Ukrainian forces began to gain control of the building's interior. Brief contact occurred at several points, but they didn't last long. Consistent pressure further weakened the enemy's position. And finally, the building was secured.